Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, we're going to talk about Netflix's new series, Receiver, featuring Davante Adams. And I broke down episodes 1 and 2 on yesterday's show, so if you haven't seen that yet, please go check it out. My plan is to be able to talk about every single episode of this Netflix series. It's the middle of July, and you know what? I just have nothing really else to talk about. But we're going to be breaking down everything that I have seen on this show in chronological order. And then on Monday's live show, we'll break down episode 4. I will say this. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
My notes are in chronological order of the way that episode 3 went. So, if you didn't see episode 3 and you don't want to get all these spoilers that I'm about to drop, I'm okay with you tuning out of today's show. Believe me, it's totally all good. But at the end of the day, I like being able to do these shows. I like being able to interact with Raider Nation, and I like being able to give my 2 cents on everything that I see, everything that I hear, because we do this show every single day. If you want to go check out my review of episodes 1 and 2, please go check it out. Here's the thumbnail on it. Davante Adams tells all. I can tell you this, he's not in episode 1. So if you want to go check it out, I had a lot of fun making this one. I dropped it for those of you that are watching this live today here on the Raiders Report. So please go check it out. Now, I know that the preseason, is right around the corner. Training camp, right around the corner. The regular season, right around the corner. But I saw these numbers the other day on my show, and I was kind of surprised that 28% of the people watching the Raiders Report right now, see all the people watching this show right now, 28% of the people watching are not subscribed. If you consider yourself a real one, if you consider yourself a family member of Chugs and I, believe it or not, when you subscribe, it does help us out a lot. I don't need you to super chat. I don't need you guys to be able to do all that stuff. A big thank you, a big way to wipe them feet, pay that bar tab, is to hit that subscribe button. So please, to the 28% of people, I would appreciate it if you subscribe. So here we go. We're going to go through everything, all the notes that I have from Netflix Receiver Takeaways, Episode 3. And if you're wondering when you get to start to see Davante Adams here a little bit, it doesn't happen until you're 21 minutes and 37 seconds. My fiance Alex told me I needed to tell you all this because I didn't tell you in the last video that I did when you get to see Davante. And if you appreciate this note right here, I want you to spam Alex down below. Next thing is, at this point, the Raiders are 1-3 on the season, And they're getting ready to prep for Monday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers. And it's a big story because that's Davante's old team, as we all know. And I can remember getting ready for this Monday Night Football game. And I remember talking to my dad before the game started. And I was like, Dad, if they go 1-4, I don't know what I am about to do today, right? I'm going to lose my mind. One of the things that I thought was really funny leading up to this game, because Davante's been kind of dealing with this AC joint injury, which he sustained in episode 2, which, if you remember, was up against the Chargers in that Week 4 game. He said that he played cornhole, and that cornhole was good for his rehab. So, if there's anybody out there, you got an injured shoulder, and your wife's like, honey, why are you playing cornhole? Hey, if it's good enough for Davante Adams, it's probably good enough for all of y'all too. So if you got an injured shoulder, I'm just loosening up my arm like the E60 kid. So next thing that happened here in the episode 3 was Davante ended up saying that the last time that he hurt his AC joint was back in 2018 with the Green Bay Packers, and he thought that this past time that he blew out his shoulder. So for anybody that's ever sustained an injury, maybe you played sports, I used to play baseball. I can remember a few times, I hurt my right knee. I blew out my MCL, and I remember being like, oh shit, that really hurt. But the difference between that to my left knee when I blew out my ACL, meniscus, and all the other L's in there in your left knee, that was a very, very big difference for me. So I really resonated with what Davante had to say there. Also, he talked about the breakup, right? When the Raiders traded for Davante Adams, everybody was like, oh man, this is such a big deal. Davante flat out said the breakup with him and the Packers was not nearly as big of a deal as what a lot of people out there thought it was. Coming up next here, what happens next in the episode gave me chills. And it was insane. And I can remember when it happened in actual, real life time. And it's something that, quite frankly, I will never forget. And I'll tell you what that is in just a moment. But I got to give a shout out to our awesome sponsor, Mando. Who out there, women, I'm talking to y'all. Who out there has a husband, a significant other, maybe your kids, who sweats a lot? Because I sweat all the time. I am Italian, and I'll tell you what, I sweat really bad. Use code CHAT, $5 off Mando Starter Pack, because we're trying to hook up Raider Nation here. At the end of the day, I want y'all looking good, smelling good, because if you do that, you're going to feel good. And I love Mando because it's clinically proven to control body odor for 72 hours. New customers that are watching this show, if you use code CHAT at shopmando.com, you're going to be able to get $5 off a starter pack, but you got to use that exclusive code. As you can see down below, that link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. Luckily, I got a discount code for the nation to get you guys hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates over 40% off your starter pack. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Shout out to Mando for hooking up the Raiders report, and shout out for them for, making me smell a little bit better. I like Mando because it kind of takes me back to some of my old baseball days where I still have smelly feet. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I got smelly feet. I sweat a lot. I got pretty bad back sweat. And when I walk to work every single day, it's Texas. It's 100 degrees. You put some Mando deodorant on your body. You walk in, you're smelling fresh. Your colleagues don't look at you weird. Shout out to them for sponsoring the show. Again, those links available down in the comments and in the description of today's show. Let's go to the next thing. The Raiders traded for Davante Adams. Raiders just traded for Davante Adams. It is a day that I will never forget because it's probably one of the most fun days I've ever had on this show. It takes me back to when the Raiders, fired Josh McDaniels. Those 2 days for me are probably the 2 best days I've ever had here at Chat Sports. And I went live for when the Raiders signed Amir Abdullah, okay? Raiders signed Amir Abdullah. I'm sitting here, and I was literally like a part of the chaos, the mess, right with you guys. And Davante, if you guys remember, when he got introduced for the Raiders, said that he was watching a show on YouTube where they were going completely ballistic. They were going completely insane. I know that there's a lot of content creators out there, but honestly, there's nobody that does what we do when we go live. We had over 100,000 people watch that stream. We were live for 10 plus hours. We were partying. We were silver and blacking out, and that's what we do here on this show. If you bleed silver and black, if you miss those Oakland tailgate days, I promise you this, we're going to bring that every single day here. And if you were partying with us when the Raiders traded for Davante Adams, I'm not even kidding you, I'm getting chills talking about it right now. Seriously, it was an unbelievable day here at Chat Sports. I want you to hit that like button right now because I'm telling you this, it is a day that I will never forget. And there's days at times, like if I'm just hanging out after a Raiders Friday happy hour, I go home, I turn on that Davante Adams trade day because the amount of people that were wilding out and partying is why you should subscribe to the Raiders Report. Let's keep it rolling here. He did say that Derek Carr was a big reason why he ended up wanting to come into the Raiders, which, not really should surprise anybody. They're old teammates at Fresno State, really, really good friends. I mean, they're like bachelor party friends, right? Like they are, I'm getting ready to go to my bachelor party in 2 weeks. My groomsmen. Like, that's how good of a friend Davante and Derek Carr are. Hell, the reason why Davante goes by Tay is because that's what DC used to call him back at Fresno State. He also said that he can't say that he would have made this change if it wasn't for Derek Carr. And, I got to take a little bit of an L on this one because I always said, I was like, no, he wants to be a Raider. DC was a big part, but I never realized how big of a part it was until, you actually hear it from Davante's mouth, and then you hear it there on that Netflix show. Next thing that happened is this. Davante kind of goes and talks about everything he was hoping for when he got traded to the Silver and Black, was really just hoping that, it all went better. And if you guys remember that year like I do, I can remember going out to California. I can remember hanging out with my guy Dinah. He watched the show here pretty often. And just all the expectations. I mean, I thought this team was winning 10, 11, not even 10, 11, 12, 13 games. And that first year with Josh McDaniels definitely did not go the way that it was planned. And after the whole benching of Derek Carr, week 17, Jarrett Stidham gets those final 2 starts. Then Davante starts talking about Jimmy Garoppolo and how Garoppolo is filling in for DC. And you want to talk about one of the worst days here at Chat Sports? When the Raiders hired Josh McDaniels, and then when the Raiders officially signed Jimmy Garoppolo, I flat out on this show said it's never going to work. Why? Because Jimmy Garoppolo was a terrible quarterback, and he still is a terrible quarterback. And it was tough, for Davante to get on that same page with Jimmy G. You're learning a brand new offense. You're learning a brand new quarterback. You're learning all these new things. And because Garoppolo was hurt during OTAs, shocker, it really, I think, slowed down the Raiders' offense. It really slowed down Davante's chemistry. And chemistry for a quarterback and a wide receiver, especially when you're a route technician like Davante is, that means a lot of stuff. And I don't care what y'all say. People made fun of me last season. People made fun of Chugs and I was like, I can outthrow a football further than Jimmy Garoppolo. You could tell Davante Adams at practice was clearly frustrated with how bad Jimmy G was because Garoppolo was horrible. He was the worst starting quarterback in the NFL last season, and quite frankly, it was not even close. And you could see it at practice. And if Davante's that frustrated in the month of June at practice, July, not good, man. Then it jumps all the way to Week 5 Monday Night Football versus the Packers. And this is kind of like the big part of the show that I was really interested in because, again, Davante facing his former team. One of the really cool parts, which I think just speaks volumes of the type of person Davante is Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, goes up to Davante and he says, my kid said, make sure the very first thing that you do is that you say that we say hello to Davante Adams. And I think that was a really special moment because, again, not for kids to make that type of connection with a player that's no longer on the team, that just goes to show the type of person that Tay is. Then, the next thing that it jumps to in the series on Netflix is Quay Walker, who, funny enough, was one of the players that technically was a part of that trade when the Raiders acquired Davante, pushes him out of bounds. And remember, Tay hurt his shoulder in the previous episode, Week 4 against the Chargers. And then he said that when he got pushed out of bounds by Quay Walker, his shoulder hurt more in that moment than it did last week, which very eye-popping thing because, it's not really something that we heard or talked that much about because Davante didn't disclose it, and you knew McDaniels and Ziegler weren't going to disclose it. So then one of the things that they were saying was, like, trying to get Davante a little bit more involved in the offense. And Tay just kept saying, like, I can't believe I'm not getting the football. And he was upset that you're losing a football game and he's only got one target. And I remember talking to Alex about this last night when I was watching it. And she's like, well, why would he be upset? And I was like, well, when your best player on offense has only got one opportunity to make a play, that makes him upset, especially against his former team. And then Davante Adams said, if we lose this game, and I only have one target, I am going to be very mad, especially against my old team. People might take that as him being selfish. I would say put yourself in Davante Adams' shoes. Be a normal human being for once. Think about this. You're out on a date with your girlfriend, with your wife, with your fiance, and you see your other significant other. You're telling me in that certain situation, you don't want to look like you're at your absolute best. You want to show him that they made the wrong choice or that you're doing better. That's what Davante Adams is doing there. He's being a normal human being. Of course, he wanted to play well against his old team, against his old friends, against his old teammates. I'll tell you this right now. If I ever got another job at anywhere else at Chat Sports, I would want to show Chat Sports that, you know what, I'm doing better because it's just a normal thing to want that. Adams then, after the Packers game, you could see how just upset he was. And the Raiders won. They won 17-13. But, like, thinking about that game from top to bottom, they won that game because of the defense. They won that game because Jordan Love was absolute booty cheeks, and Tay was frustrated. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and when all the cameras are in Davante's face after the game, you can see how upset he is. And then they pan over Deebo Samuel. He's getting, like, worked on. He's getting, like, something with his shoulder. And Deebo literally says out loud, oh, shit, is Davante trying to get traded? Because, Davante was frustrated. He was upset. And you don't always see that type of frustration after a win, especially from a captain, because, it's not something that happens. But it's one of the reasons why I respect Davante, because I listen to media. I want to listen to people talk and give me their truth. I don't want to sit up there and listen to Josh McDaniels, bullshit, and everything that he says I don't believe. I would rather you tell me something that's hard for me to hear if it's honest than for you to tell me something that I want to hear if it's not true. Davante's always been honest with the nation. Then it jumps all the way to Week 6 versus the New England Patriots. Josh McDaniels' favorite team. And this was another very interesting part in the show, I thought, simply because I knew how this game went, right? And when you follow it along as well as we have, it's been an interesting thing watching the episodes and always thinking like, all right, how was like the season going? How were our watch parties going? How was the nation feeling? And we'll keep on taking a little bit more of a deep dive into this week 6 versus the Patriots. But I do want to tell everybody, if you want to hang out with me and potentially Chugs, he's still a little bit on the fence. He might visit his family down in Houston, but for those that don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on in Houston right now. But if you want to meet up with me, if you want to meet up with a bunch of other people from Raider Nation, Saturday, July 20th at 1 p.m., here's the address. It's going to be at a Matito's. If you're wondering what that is, it's like Tex-Mex food. Really, really good food, by the way. Awesome drinks as well. It's owned and operated by a Raiders fan, and I got off the phone with him a few days ago. He would love to be able to host us. He's going to hook up the nation as long as you're wearing Raiders gear. You got to wear some Raiders gear, and he's going to hook you up. So I want to be able to hang out with the nation right before training camp got started. Just saying, there's not going to be any Raiders players there. There might be some Raiders players' parents there, is all I'm going to say. Hopefully you pull up. Hopefully you have a good time. I'd love to see you there. All right, we're going to keep rolling here on our Netflix series takeaway. Davante gets hurt from a bad Jimmy Garoppolo throw. And this was one of those plays, again, where, throws up the ball, and Davante's not the one that gets hurt. It's Jimmy G. So Davante's going down the field, has a beautiful route, makes a guy miss. Garoppolo throws up a duck like he usually does, and he ends up hurting his back, which as soon as that happened, then now it's this is the spot where he gets smoked. Okay. So this is the one where he's coming across. It's like a slant. Garoppolo throws it just a little bit behind him. He bobbles it for a second, and then dude gets absolutely smoked. I want to say it was by Jabril Peppers was the one that ended up making the hit. Yeah. No, he's right. Then Tay's wife said, this is where I knew for a fact that Davante's frustration was really, really boiling over to a point where, because I know if I'm upset about something, I'll go home and I'll vent to Alex, my fiance. I'll talk to her about it. The fact that Davante gets popped the way that he did against Jabril Peppers. Again, you got to remember, the week before that, AC joint problem, bad throw by Aidan O'Connell. This time, bad throw by Jimmy Garoppolo. And now Tay's hurt again. Tay's wife said that her grandmother texted her and said, he has to get out of Vegas. He's going to lose his life. Then they panned to Davante Adams on the sidelines after the hit. And he goes, I got to get the out of here before I lose my life. So the fact that not only grandma texted the lose his life part, then Davante said, I'm going to lose my life part. There's no way that they could have had a communication. My point is, after that week 4 game against the Chargers, Davante had to use these words. And then his wife had to tell her family that Davante is just kind of getting frustrated with how bad he's getting hit, how often he's getting hit, because the quarterback play for the Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo and O'Connell at the time, was horrendous and putting him on. They were trying to get him, not trying to get him injured, but I can remember sitting up here on the show saying they're throwing hospital balls. When the ball flutters and the defense has a second to react and you're throwing it behind them, those are what known as hospital balls. And I'll say this, and this is going to be an unpopular take for the nation, and hopefully it is what it is. But seeing how frustrated Davante Adams is in this Netflix series, because if you're watching it, he's pissed. Like, you can tell he's very upset with how bad the Raiders quarterback play is. If the Raiders struggle again this year with their quarterback play, and I'm not even saying, to me, there's no way that it's going to be as bad as what it was last year. It can't be as bad as what it was last year. But if, Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew are both, in the bottom, 5, 10 QBs in the league, and it's really, really frustrating, I will start to get nervous that Davante might actually want out, because it's not just going to come from him. It's going to come from his wife. It's going to come from his family, based off of what I have seen in Netflix receiver, but I'm just hoping that he never leaves the silver and black, because I don't want Tay to leave. Next clip then is Davante running, a Davante Adams route, right? Like a route that you're going to show your kid. You're like, hey, this is how you run a go. He runs a beautiful go. The problem is Jimmy G can't do anything. Throws a freaking duck up into the air, misses him horrendous. This is what I was talking about earlier that I kind of effed up on. And then Jimmy takes a little bit of a hit, hurts his back. He's unable to return. If anybody out there thought that Garoppolo was going to be able to play every game this season, I got beautiful beachfront property in Montana next to Buddy Bear that I think that you guys would really, really like. Then Brian Hoyer comes in, and yeah, I gotta give Brian at times a little bit of credit because Hoyer knows who he is, and he knows he's not a good quarterback in the NFL. He takes over, and he throws a ball into the end zone to Davante. And there's always that saying, you got to give your guy a shot, especially if it's Davante. You got to give him a shot. He throws the ball into the end zone, and it's like 10 yards over Davante's head, and Hoyer immediately goes to the sidelines, and he's talking to Davante, and he's like apologizing. He's trying to tell him, like, dude, hey, man, if you get a one-on-one opportunity, like, I'm going to throw you the football. Davante the entire time handled it well, but you could see in the way that he was responding, he's like, all right, bro, just get out of my face. You're a terrible quarterback. Davante and his wife then, they're clearly frustrated with the play, and Davante then, like, ends up going to say, like, you know, I'm one of the best receivers of all time, very upset. But Hoyer did say, and this is the part where I do give Hoyer a little bit of credit, he literally told Davante, he's like, bro, every time you get single coverage, I'm throwing you the football, which every time, if I'm Brian Hoyer, I'm going to throw Davante the ball every time I get single coverage. Then Adams goes on to say, I got 3 touchdowns this season. We're in week 6 at this point. He said that he's 5th all time, and that's embarrassing. I'm not going to lie. When I heard him say that, the light bulb went on in my mind, and I was like, is Davante Adams really 5th all time in receiving touchdowns? I actually was like, there's no way possible. So when I got to work this morning, I looked it up. For those that do not know, Davante is 12th all-time with receiving touchdowns. He's got 95 for his career. If you're wondering who are some of the other players, there is a Raider in the top 10 list at least. Shout out to Tim Brown. So Tay is 12th with 95. He's going to end up getting into this top 10 list. Now, the only other active player that's even close to him is Mike Evans, and he's also got 94 touchdowns, so very close to him, neck and neck. Davante's point is this. It's basically like, hey, man, I'm one of the best in the biz when it comes to scoring touchdowns. How am I not getting more targets? How am I not getting more opportunities? How am I just not getting a better football thrown to me? And one of the big takeaways was Adam said that it doesn't make sense how talented that the Raiders were, and they can't score 20 points. Because if you remember last year, the Raiders struggled to put up 20, and then in that Patriots game, they ended up getting a safety, and it was the very, very first time that they scored 20 points. And realistically, to me, it's not surprising. You know why it's not surprising? Right there. And I don't like to be the I told you so guy, but I don't think that there was another person that does Raiders content. I don't think there was another person in the NFL media. I don't think that there was another person alive. And if there was, quite frankly, I'd love to meet you because I was, I think, the leader, the CEO, the president of the, you got to fire the clown. You got to get rid of Josh McDaniels. But you could just see how just upset Raiders players were. And we knew this offense was talented. I get the quarterback play was bad, but the offense was talented. You spent the second most money on the offensive side of the football, and yet you could not score. Why? Because of the clown. One last time, can I get some F Josh McDaniels down below? Keeping it rolling here, the Raiders did win the game, but I can remember the story very clearly because Tay only ended up having 2 catches, and he was upset, and he then went on to say like that he doesn't look at wins and losses, but he looks at greatness. I do have the quote here that I'll be able to show you because I can remember when this happened, everybody lost their mind. And I did too because I'm a normal person. When I see something, I'm like, oh man, I'm an instant thinker, right? I'm going to say exactly how I feel. But then when you go back and you actually look at the quote, I have a very different answer now than I originally did, and I'm not afraid to admit that. Here's what Davante Adams said after a win versus the Patriots Week 6 in 2023. I'm sure people are thinking, well, they won the game. They won the Packers game. Why is there an issue? I mean, you see why it's an issue. Y'all know who I am, and y'all know what I'm about at this point. When you're a player like me, mentally, my benchmark is not wins and losses. It's greatness. When I go out there, I expect to be able to have that ability to put that on tape and have an influence on the game. The reason why that I think that he said that, and I kind of agree with him, is I think he's saying, like, sure, they won the game. But, like, as a Raider fan, when you watch them beat the Packers and you watch them beat the New England Patriots, you're like, we won. Just win, baby. All good. But you're like, man, that's kind of an ugly win. And when you're talking about Davante Adams, he knows, like, which I think everybody agrees here, this is like, would you rather have Davante Adams have 10 targets or 2 targets, right? Like, I think the more you target Davante Adams, probably the more better that your offense is going to end up doing. But when you talk about greatness, when you talk about Davante, a guy that has never won a Super Bowl ring, he can look at that game and go, yes, we did win that game, and it's awesome that we won the game. But, like, you can't always just look at it wins and losses. If I'm Davante, I'm looking at it at Super Bowls. I came to the Raiders. I want to finish my career with a Super Bowl ring. And, yes, we won, but if we play like that, we ain't winning a Super Bowl. So if you're going to judge it based on greatness, to him, he's like, we want to win a Super Bowl, I got to be involved. And until that happens, I don't think we're going to win a Super Bowl. Therefore, I feel like I'm wasting my time. That's how Davante Adams felt, in my personal opinion. So here we go. I want you guys to grade episode 3 of the Netflix series Receiver. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F down below. On episode 1 and 2, I gave it a D because I don't see how you can do a show called Receiver and not have Justin Jefferson and Davante Adams in episode 1. In terms of episode 3, I'm going to go ahead and give this one an A grade. I love the episode from start to finish. You got to see every single receiver, which I loved. And then on top of that, it is a lot of Davante Adams. And spoiler alert, episode 4, you can already see that they're getting ready to start about Davante. With the amount of drama that has happened around the Raiders with Josh McDaniels, I also like it because the amount of, I'll be real, the amount of horrible things that people said to me last year when I was like, I had multiple Raiders players tell me that they are not happy with McDaniels and they want him fired. You can already see the frustration in Davante's eyes boiling from July, August, September, October, and now we're starting to get to that point where we all know he's about to get fired. The clown's about to get fired. But when you got a guy like Davante, who is just such a good dude, such a rock star of a player, when you see him getting as mad as what he's getting after a win, I think it just goes to show that there were so many Raiders players that were upset. I know what the beat reporters were reporting. I know what everyone was saying, but I also know what I was told. And I think Netflix is showing you that they were getting ready to get rid of Josh McDaniels. That's 4 just win babies. Believe it, baby.